What would you do if the richest man in the room belittled you in front of everyone? And you knew, with one sentence, you could change the entire room? That's exactly the moment that transformed the quiet life of Naomi Carter, a single mother juggling two jobs in one of the world's busiest cities. She didn't plan on being a symbol. She just wanted to pay rent and send her daughter to ballet class. Naomi was 29 years old and carried a quiet strength that most people overlooked. Between shifts at a Manhattan bakery and late evenings at L'Ambroisie, an upscale fusion restaurant, she never had a moment to rest. Her daughter Maya was 7 years old and full of questions, dreams, and sass. The kind of child who asked for glitter shoes one moment and asked what equity meant the next. Naomi worked nights at L'Ambroisie, a place where wealth whispered in the clink of crystal glassware and chefs plated food like it was fine art. Nestled in a grand pre-war building uptown, the restaurant catered to Manhattan's elite. The uniform code was strict: hair pinned up, no earrings larger than a stud, and shoes polished so well they reflected the chandeliers above. To get this job, Naomi had beaten out dozens of applicants. She studied the wine list like scripture, memorized every plate description, and practiced her posture in the mirror. She arrived 2 hours early for each shift, sometimes even before the head chef. She wasn't just trying to be a good waitress. She was trying to build a better future, one tip at a time. Still, no amount of training could have prepared her for Lucien Rothschild, the billionaire who walked in one evening and turned her life upside down. Lucien wasn't just rich, he was famous rich, a global tech mogul who had made headlines for developing one of the world's most advanced predictive algorithms, the kind used by governments, stock markets, and private security firms. He was known for brilliance and for being utterly ruthless, publicly charming, but privately explosive if the rumors were true. And that night, Naomi saw the truth for herself. The night had started off like any other. Naomi had been assigned tables 4, 5, and 6, a modest section away from the VIP booths near the back. Her customers were pleasant enough: a retired professor celebrating a book launch, a pair of newlyweds, and a woman with two teenagers who only wanted fries. But then came a change. The head server, Jared, limped out of the kitchen after slipping on a piece of lettuce. Naomi saw the panic in his eyes. "Table 9, he whispered, clutching his side. "Lucien Rothschild. He's here. I can't walk properly. Naomi, you're up." Naomi's stomach flipped. She wasn't senior enough for VIPs. Not usually. But Jared wasn't faking his limp, and the maitre d' had already given the nod. This was her moment, or her downfall. With trembling hands and a professional smile fixed in place, Naomi approached table 9. Lucien Rothschild sat alone at first, tall, imposing, and immaculately dressed in a dark charcoal suit with a silver tie that looked like it had been crafted in a lab. His eyes were cold steel, his jaw clenched as he glanced around the room with bored disdain. Two security guards sat discreetly nearby, pretending to be guests. The tension in the air, palpable. Naomi cleared her throat gently. "Good evening, sir. My name is Naomi, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Would you like to begin with a wine selection or one of our signature cocktails?" He didn't look at her, just muttered, "Wine. Dry. Expensive." Naomi kept smiling, though her heart knocked against her ribs. "Of course, sir. May I recommend the Chateau de Chem, 2001 vintage? It pairs well with both the seafood and the duck and—" "I said expensive, not sugary," he cut in, still scrolling on his phone. Naomi blinked. "Certainly. In that case, we have a Riesling from the—" He held up a hand, and that was how the night began. Throughout the next 20 minutes, Lucien barked orders like a drill sergeant. His business associate arrived, a quieter man named Daniel Perez, who seemed exhausted just by Lucien's presence. They ordered Wagyu beef, seared rare with black garlic sauce, no garnish. Truffle mashed potatoes on the side, no chives. Everything had to be flawless. Everything had to be immediate. Naomi executed every detail with precision. She checked, double-checked, and made sure the chef prepared everything to perfection. But when she returned to serve the dishes, Lucien glared at the steak as if it had personally offended him. "This is raw," he snapped, his voice rising like a shot. Naomi felt the room freeze. She took a deep breath. "I'm sorry to hear that, sir. I can return it to the kitchen and—" "I don't need your apologies," he boomed. "I need competence." The silverware at the next table paused midair. Even the pianist faltered on a note. Lucien leaned back in his seat, arms crossed. You people, you're all the same. You memorize a script and think it makes you professionals. You don't know anything about service. Do you know who I am? Naomi flushed. Her throat tightened, but she remembered Maya, remembered the unpaid electricity bill, the ballet shoes they couldn't afford last month. She steadied her breath. I'll have the chef prepare another, just the way you like it, she said, turning to leave. Bring the manager, Lucien barked after her, and make it fast. If I wanted to eat in competence, I'd have stayed at my hotel. The dining room had gone completely silent now. Naomi felt the heat crawling up her neck as she fetched the maitre d', who whispered panicked apologies and rushed to Lucien's table. What happened next would send shockwaves through the entire restaurant, and eventually the internet. Lucien stood, slammed his napkin on the table, and pointed a finger directly at Naomi in front of everyone. This waitress is a joke, he roared. You should fire her. She ruined my dinner. She insulted me. Do you realize what it costs to eat here? What I pay in a minute is what she makes in a month. She doesn't belong in this restaurant. She doesn't belong in this city. And in that exact moment, something shifted in Naomi. Maybe it was the humiliation. Maybe it was the exhaustion of working thankless jobs for years. Or maybe it was simply time. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She stood tall, looked Lucien Rothschild dead in the eye, and said one sentence, 7 words, that silenced the room and changed her life forever. You can buy a steak, sir, but you can't buy decency. The room froze. Forks paused midair. The pianist's hands hovered above the keys. A waiter at the back dropped a wine glass. Even Lucien's jaw visibly tightened. You could have heard a pin drop. For a full 5 seconds, no one in the restaurant dared to breathe. Even the pianist, who had been quietly playing Debussy moments before, froze with his fingers hovering midair, unsure whether the silence required reverence or fear. Naomi Carter stood there, spine straight, heart pounding, and yet impossibly calm. Her sentence still echoed in the air like smoke after an explosion. You can buy a steak, sir, but you can't buy decency. She hadn't rehearsed it. It wasn't something she'd read in a book or heard in a movie. It had come from somewhere deep, deeper than her exhaustion, deeper than her fear. It came from every late shift she had pulled, every customer who waved her off like she was disposable, every boss who smiled at her face but counted her tips behind her back. And for once, she let it rise. Lucien Rothschild, billionaire tech giant, venture capitalist and rumored investor in half the businesses on that street, was visibly stunned. His face flushed crimson, lips parted like he was trying to find oxygen. This was a man used to being the hammer in every room. But now someone had stood up, and it was the person he least expected, a waitress. Across the room, whispers began to ripple like a quiet tide. Someone gasped. A man in a designer blazer muttered, "Did she just say that?" A woman in pearls put a hand over her mouth in shock. Naomi didn't move. She didn't speak again. She simply held her gaze, eyes locked on Lucien like steel to magnet. Then, a slow clap. From the back of the room, near table 16, a middle-aged woman with streaks of silver in her braids stood up and applauded once, twice, 3 times, and then it spread. One by one, patrons began to clap, tentatively at first as though afraid they'd be escorted out, then with growing force. Someone whistled. A few guests rose to their feet. Even Daniel Perez, Lucien's associate, had the decency to set his fork down and offer a quiet, respectful nod to Naomi. Lucien, meanwhile, was shaking. He didn't lash out, not yet. He just stared. His nostrils flared. His eyes were wild, darting between Naomi, the applauding patrons, and the maitre d' standing stiffly at his side, caught in the middle of a PR nightmare. Are you all insane? Lucien finally spat. She insulted me, in public. She humiliated a paying customer. I will ruin her. I'll ruin this entire restaurant. The maitre d', Benjamin Rios, a seasoned man in his early 60s, stepped forward with careful diplomacy. Sir, he said gently, perhaps we can move this conversation to a more private setting? No, we cannot, Lucien snapped, grabbing his phone. She's finished. All of you are finished. I'll buy this place just to shut it down. Naomi's breath caught, but she didn't flinch. She stood still, unsure if her legs would hold if she moved. In the back of her mind, all she could hear was Maya's voice from 2 days ago. Mommy, you're brave, even when you're scared. Now she understood what her daughter meant. Lucien grabbed his jacket and stormed toward the exit. Daniel scrambled after him, apologizing to no one in particular. The two security guards stood as well, but even they looked slightly embarrassed. One of them offered Naomi a sympathetic glance before turning away. And just like that, he was gone. Silence returned, until it didn't. A man in a gray vest raised his wine glass and said, "To the lady with backbone." The room erupted in soft applause again. Laughter rippled. The tension that had suffocated the space now evaporated like steam after a thunderstorm. Naomi, still standing, turned to Benjamin. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I know that wasn't protocol." Benjamin held up a hand. "Stop. Just stop. Let's go to the back." She followed him into the service hallway, legs wobbling as adrenaline finally caught up to her. Behind them, the restaurant staff buzzed in disbelief. Some applauded quietly. Others whispered, "She's a legend." And did you see Rothschild's face? In the back hallway, Benjamin exhaled deeply. "I've worked in this industry for 38 years, he said, "and I've never seen anyone do what you just did." Naomi braced herself. "I know I might have just lost my job." "You didn't," he interrupted. "At least not yet. I can't promise what the owners will say, but I'll tell you this. Every single person in that room saw what just happened. They saw the way he treated you, and they saw your courage." Naomi lowered her gaze. "I just snapped. I wasn't trying to be a hero." Benjamin softened. "Sometimes the truth doesn't wait for permission. It just needs a voice." That night, Naomi finished her shift. Yes, she returned to her other tables. Yes, she poured wine for the professor at table 4 and helped the teens choose a dessert. And yes, she did it all while wondering if that one sentence had detonated her future. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that someone at table 12 had recorded the entire exchange, and they had already uploaded it to TikTok. By the time Naomi got home to her small apartment in Queens, Maya was asleep on the couch under a blanket of cartoon cats. Naomi didn't wake her. She sat quietly in the kitchen, a bowl of instant noodles steaming before her, and stared at the phone in her hand. Notifications buzzed faster than she could keep up. Her friend Aaron, a bartender from another job, had texted, "Girl, you're on Instagram. Like, big time." Her cousin sent a screenshot of a Twitter thread. Waitress tells off Lucien Rothschild with this line, "People are calling her the new Rosa Parks of hospitality." Naomi blinked. She clicked the link. There it was. The video. Shaky footage, clearly taken from behind a potted plant, but unmistakable. Lucien yelling, Naomi standing her ground. And then, the line. "You can buy a steak, sir, but you can't buy decency." The clip had already hit 400,000 views. The comments were exploding. "Legend! Hire her for the next presidential debate. Lucien got cooked harder than that steak. Service workers deserve better. This woman is a hero." Naomi didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but one thing was clear. Something had begun, something she couldn't undo. And it was only the beginning. By sunrise the next morning, Naomi Carter was no longer just a waitress. She was a symbol, a 29-year-old single mom who had simply stood her ground in a moment of humiliation, was now the unwitting face of something bigger. A movement, a message, a mirror to an entitled world. She didn't want it. She didn't ask for it, but it found her anyway. Her phone buzzed nonstop, vibrating like it had a heartbeat of its own. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, even LinkedIn. Her name trended on platforms she didn't even use. A clip of her sentence had surpassed 2 million views by mid-morning. By lunchtime, it was on the front page of Reddit and had made its way to the homepage of BuzzFeed. Naomi stared blankly at the screen, still in her pajamas, while Maya danced around the apartment in her mismatched socks, oblivious to the media storm unraveling. "Mommy," Maya said, "someone at school said you're famous now. Is that true? Are you going to be on TV?" Naomi offered a weak smile. Don't know, baby. I might be. Not the answer any parent plans to give over cereal and toast. Before she could even brush her teeth, her email inbox exploded. Subject lines jumped off the screen. Interview request, Good Morning America. Would love to have you on our podcast, Standing Up to Power. CNN would like a statement. From one single mom to another, thank you. And the one that truly made her sit down. Naomi, we'd like to discuss a brand partnership from a company she'd never imagined knowing her name. Meanwhile, her phone kept ringing. Naomi, came a familiar voice. It was Benjamin, the maitre d' from L'Ambroisie. I need to tell you something. The owners are calling a meeting. Today, noon. Staff only. Naomi's breath caught. This is about Lucien, isn't it? Benjamin exhaled heavily. Yes. And the video. It's everywhere. The owners. They're in a tough spot. Naomi didn't need more explanation. She knew exactly how this worked. When billionaires complained, heads rolled. No matter who was right, no matter how viral it went, no matter how just it felt. After dropping Maya at her friend Lydia's apartment, Naomi made her way to L'Ambroisie with a heart pounding so loudly she couldn't hear her own footsteps. Outside the building, a small crowd had gathered. Reporters, camera crews, and curious bystanders who just wanted to see the girl who said the thing. She pulled her coat tighter and kept her head down. Inside, the restaurant was quiet, uncomfortably so. The private dining room had been transformed into a war room. The staff sat in rows, some bleary-eyed from working the night before, others wide awake and buzzing from the chaos. Everyone turned when she walked in. Some clapped, others whispered. Naomi sat near the back, unsure if she should feel proud or terrified. At the front of the room stood two people she had only seen once or twice. Martin Keene, the director of operations, and Clara Saint. James, the co-owner of the restaurant group. Clara was tall, graceful, and intimidating in that CEO way where every sentence felt like it had been rehearsed. She looked straight at Naomi and smiled. Thank you all for being here, Clara began, her voice calm but commanding. As many of you know, a video involving an incident at our restaurant has gone viral. We are now the center of a media firestorm. A few staff members shifted uncomfortably. One of the bartenders mouthed, "No kidding," Clara continued. We've spent the morning consulting with our legal team, our PR firm, and a number of stakeholders. And here is our decision. Naomi's heart stopped. We will not be terminating Naomi Carter. Clara said clearly, in fact, we stand behind her. There was a beat of silence, then the room exhaled. Naomi blinked. Did she hear that right? Martin Keene stepped forward. Miss Carter acted with restraint and professionalism in the face of verbal abuse. She did not raise her voice. She did not insult Mr. Rothschild. She simply told the truth. We believe that matters. Benjamin clapped first. Then the rest of the room joined him. Naomi didn't know whether to cry or run out of the room. She felt her cheeks burning, her palms sweating, and her eyes blurring all at once. Clara raised a hand again. That said, we must now operate under new scrutiny. Reporters are outside. Customers may come here not just for the food, but for the story. We are now part of a national conversation, and we will treat this moment not as a scandal, but as an opportunity. Then she turned to Naomi directly. We'd like to offer you additional support, a media coach, a public relations liaison, and, if you're willing, a voice. Naomi blinked. A voice? Clara nodded. People are listening to you, Naomi, and frankly, they should be. You didn't just defend yourself, you defended service workers everywhere. Naomi swallowed. I'm just a waitress. I wasn't trying to start anything. Clara smiled gently. The most powerful voices are usually the ones that never meant to be loud, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't speak. By evening, Naomi's life had changed again. She did one interview, just one, with a local station on the restaurant's request. She kept her answers short and gracious, careful not to escalate or attack Lucien Rothschild, but it was enough. That interview got picked up by national outlets, then international ones. Clips of her calmly stating, "No one should be humiliated at work, regardless of who walks through the door," spread like wildfire. More messages poured in. Waitresses from Ohio, baristas from London, hotel clerks in Dubai, all saying the same thing. You spoke for us. Naomi cried that night, alone sitting on the floor of her living room after putting Maya to sleep. Not because she was scared anymore, but because for the first time in her life, she felt seen. The following morning, she received a letter, a real one, on heavy cream paper with embossed lettering, from the Rothschild group. Her hands trembled as she opened it. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a lawsuit either. It was a threat of litigation for reputational damage, not from Lucien himself, but from his legal team, citing defamation, incitement, and willful sabotage. Naomi dropped the letter. So this was it. She had stood up to a man with money, and now he wanted revenge. That night, she met with Clara and Martin in a quiet corner of the restaurant. They already knew. We're preparing our response, Clara said, calm as ever. We've spoken to attorneys. He doesn't have a case. If he files, it'll blow up in his face. Naomi hesitated. But what if he wins? What if I lose everything? Clara looked her in the eyes. Then you'll lose it with integrity. That sentence stayed with her. That night, Naomi walked home under the New York moonlight, feeling the weight of possibility and fear dancing across her chest. She looked up at the sky and whispered a promise to herself. If I go down standing. But what she didn't know yet was that something else was about to happen. Something unbelievable. 3 days after Naomi Carter told a billionaire he couldn't buy Decency, the world had decided something surprising. They agreed with her, and not quietly. Every major news outlet, from CNN to Al Jazeera, had replayed the moment. Talk shows debated it. Hashtags like "She Decency Matters," "She Service Workers Deserve Respect," and Naomi Carter trended across platforms. Think pieces flooded the internet. Why we're all Naomi now? The billionaire who got burned by a truth teller. One waitress, one sentence, one cultural reset. People were tired. Tired of the rudeness, the power games, the way money had become a license to mistreat those without it. Naomi had said what so many wanted to say, and said it in a place that wasn't a protest or a courtroom, but a dinner shift. But behind the headlines, Naomi was still just a mom, a woman trying to pay rent, trying to make pancakes for a daughter who suddenly thought her mom was more famous than Beyoncé. She still cleaned up Maya's art supplies, still took the subway, still flinched when her phone rang with unknown numbers, because it might be Lucien's lawyers again. But then came the knock. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Naomi had just finished folding laundry. She looked out through the peephole of her apartment door and nearly dropped the basket in her hands. Standing in the hallway, dressed in a crisp gray suit, was a man she instantly recognized. Lucien Grant, the billionaire philanthropist, the man who had funded clean water in Africa, who had donated billions to climate change and education, who had once walked off a TV interview when the host mocked a low-income family. He was everything Lucien Rothschild was not. Naomi opened the door, stunned. "Mr. Grant," he smiled, "may I come in?" "I promise I won't take long." She blinked. Of course. Yes, please." He stepped inside, looking around the modest living room, the crayon drawings on the fridge, the scuffed coffee table, the scent of vanilla candles and laundry detergent. "This is exactly how I imagined it," he said kindly. Naomi tilted her head. "I'm sorry?" He smiled. Real, warm, honest. She motioned for him to sit. "Can I get you something?" "I won't stay long," he said, "but I needed to speak to you personally. I've been following what happened. I saw the video, of course. I saw what you said." Naomi's stomach tightened. "And?" He leaned forward. "Thank you." She froze. "You see," he continued, "when people like Lucien Rothschild treat others like they're beneath them, they chip away at something deeper than just manners. They chip away at humanity. And you put it back in place." Naomi sat down slowly. "I've dealt with men like him all my life," Lucien said. "I've been in rooms where waiters were spoken to like dogs, where assistants were snapped at like furniture. But rarely, so rarely, does anyone ever speak back. And when they do, it usually costs them everything." He paused. "You spoke, And instead of the world turning on you, they listened. Naomi's voice was small. I didn't do it for attention. I know, he said. That's why it mattered. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a sleek black folder. What's this? A proposal, he said, from the Julian Grant Foundation. Naomi opened it slowly. Inside was a formal offer, a full-time salaried position as Director of Worker Dignity Initiatives. Travel optional, salary generous, benefits included, with childcare support, all wrapped around one mission, to make sure what happened to Naomi Carter never had to happen to another worker again. Naomi stared, speechless. You'd be amazing, Julian said gently. You'd talk to schools, speak to businesses, advocate, empower, not as a political voice, but as a human one. You'd train managers in empathy, teach service workers how to defend their dignity, and most of all, you'd remind people that being rich doesn't mean being right. Tears brimmed in her eyes. But what if I mess it up? She whispered. Julian smiled. You already passed the hardest test. You stood up when it mattered. The rest? We'll help you with that. Naomi didn't answer right away. She was still frozen in place, thinking about her rent, about Maya, about the table 9 steak that changed everything. Can I think about it? Of course, but I hope you say yes. The world needs more Naomi Carters. Word of the offer leaked a few days later, and the public's response? Electric. Suddenly, number Naomi Carter wasn't just a hashtag, it was a brand of dignity. Dozens of restaurants pledged to improve conditions for staff. Service worker unions quoted her in press releases. Schools asked her to speak. Late-night shows invited her to appear. But Naomi kept her boundaries. She wasn't interested in fame. She was interested in change. And when L'Ambroisie offered to keep her on part-time while she pursued the foundation role, she accepted. She still loved the dance of serving plates, the art of a good pour, the quiet pride in doing a job well. But now she did it with a new confidence. And the occasional customer who recognized her only ever said one thing. Thank you. Lucien Rothschild never publicly responded again. His team withdrew the legal threat after his PR advisors warned him that any lawsuit would backfire dramatically. Rumors swirled that he had retreated to a private island for reputation rehab. A few outlets tried to spin the story in his favor, but the tide was against him. He was no longer a mogul, he was a meme. And Naomi Carter? She became a name whispered with reverence in restaurants, cafes, airports, and boardrooms alike. 1 month later, Naomi stood on a small stage in Brooklyn. She wore a simple navy dress and held Maya's hand. They were at the launch of Project Decency, an initiative co-funded by the Julian Grant Foundation and L'Ambroisie, dedicated to protecting service workers and training employers to lead with respect. As cameras clicked and the room applauded, Naomi stepped to the microphone. She didn't prepare a speech. She didn't need one. She looked out at the crowd and said, I never wanted to be a symbol. I just wanted to be heard. I think most people feel that way. Whether you're serving a steak or sweeping a floor, respect shouldn't be optional. And no matter who you are or how much you make, if you think someone's beneath you, then the problem isn't them. It's you. Applause thundered across the hall. Julian Grant clapped from the front row, and Maya grinned proudly, clutching her mom's hand. That night, Naomi walked home under a sky filled with stars. She looked down at Maya skipping beside her and felt something shift in her chest. She had started this journey as a waitress. She ended it as a force, because sometimes one sentence really can change the world. You can buy a steak, sir, but you can't buy decency.